Why is the Idaho 4 case one of the most discussed cases of all time? Because it's literally that open-ended, that crazy of a read of a book, that there are so many potential avenues that you could venture down to try to pinpoint who the culprit or culprits of the crime truly are. Yes, Bryan Kohberger, at this very moment, sits in a jail cell as if he is the one that committed the crime. Done deal. Remember, even law enforcement from Moscow stepped in front of that microphone where they had the tendency of lying to everybody, including their local community. And they stepped before that microphone and used the terminology that we're just going to have to trust them, because they're not going to release the information that would prove why they were right in their investigation. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what they said. Trust us, because we're not going to tell you how we got to the person that we did, and we're not going to tell you the facts of the case. We are going to hide and conceal those. So at the end of the day, we all are left here with our minds racing, our hearts beating, because we do want the victims to get real and true justice, but we want it to be the honest, real, and true justice. Many just are not able to come to the end conclusion that what's being fed to us is real and legitimate. Others, of course, have taken every word of it as if it's all real and legitimate and it's the honest truth. And that's because they're being led down to a narrative with false information, both by mainstream media, immediate family members of the victims that are wanting someone to be held accountable to the point they lose their life. And at the end of the day, that looks bad, because it seems as though they very much themselves are doing two things. They're hiding something very deep that they could potentially be involved in. But even more so, they're profiting. They're profiting off of the death of their child. And what's sad is they're dragging other content creators from the YouTube in with them by feeding them little tidbits that these individuals bring to the table as if they're solid facts. We don't know solid facts. And the sad thing about it is, neither do they. But at the end of the day, we keep scrambling, and many of us are digging deep, trying to help better understand how and why we got to the crime itself's point. Why did 4 individuals lose their lives in such a horrific manner? But even more so, we're trying to put together the pieces as to why that had to happen in the first place. Some feel informants, snitching, drugs, narcotics, foul play. There's so much that could go into this very crime. And I'm one that loves to think about alternative motives and alternative theories to what potentially law enforcement and others are putting out there. And I've kind of had this weird feeling within me recently. I had it for a while in the past. I kind of moved forward from it, and now it just sits weirdly within me again. And tonight, because I've been working to get through my series of the when, the where, the who, and the why, I think we're going to take a step into the who, but we're going to do so by breaking it down into alternative theory who's and spreading these out into various videos. I don't think I want to just do one video, because I think there's too many potential who's that could be looked at and maybe investigated and should be investigated. So tonight, I hope you bear with me, because I've got one that's really been heavily on my mind. I'll give you kind of an idea before we get started. This inner feeling of a Jodi Arias type feel comes to my mind. ARHayes, welcome to A Convict's Thoughts, where we venture with an open mind into many different directions because that's what real investigating is. You have to look at the potentials of a wide variety of suspects. Otherwise, you've ruled out the majority of the investigation to focus on one individual direction or person. And I don't believe that's investigating. We are looking at a home that legitimately is a 6-bedroom, off-campus, residential home that typically had many more people within the home, whether they be party goers, buddies, friends, hangouts, boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever it might be. There's typically far more than just the 5. And funny, on the night of the crime, there were 6, and the 6th was not an actual roommate, because as we've all been led to believe, one of the rooms in the very bottom floor, first floor, was empty, as that roommate was not living there. Ashlyn Couch, good friend to both Bethany and Dylan. Kind of interesting, wasn't there? And the 2 survivors were. But. Okay, we gotta get to my actual theory. I gotta get here. I have this Jodi Arias feel because if you really think about it, 2 people survived within the home, 2 females. And I have had people reach out to me and wonder, why does nobody look at a female perpetrator of this crime? And I thought about that. Because you know what? There's been some very violent, very violent crimes committed by females that have this emotional chaos within them. Jodi Arias comes to mind because look at what she did to Travis Alexander, both with a knife and a gun, ending that man's life, leaving him curled up in a bloody mess of a shower after taking pictures and hanging out. But just think of the oddness of driving after the fact to a boyfriend's home in a whole nother state, halfway across the country. She had even gone so far to put gas cans in her car to try to deflect any sort of suspicion upon her. So, of course, my mind kind of races because I think about Dylan, and we did a video last night where we spoke. Dylan is a key. No matter which way you look at this case, Dylan is a key. She was center, dead center of the crime scene. Anybody that tells you there's no possible way she heard what was going on, she slept through it, she was stuck in frozen shock phase, it's all BS. Dylan Mortensen's little butt was right in the middle of the crime scene, hearing it all go on from the very beginning when someone made the statement, someone's here, to all the other things she heard where she, based upon what the lying law enforcement, I'm going to make a statement very clear. Law enforcement lied from the very beginning of this investigation. I still today don't believe they've stopped. Anybody that wants to contradict me in stating that, just go back and watch every single one of their press conferences where they stepped before the mic and misfed information to everybody out and about that had interest in this case. That's called lying. People will call it just reserving the facts for later. They don't need it. That is not serving and protecting your community. That is lying. misrepresenting information, making people feel comfortable when there's a potential quadruple murderer running around in your neighborhood. That's lying. And even based upon the arrest that was made, Bryan Kohberger, they allowed this man to not only venture throughout the community for a period of time, but the country. Don't tell me they didn't step up and lie. So now, when everybody wants to break down the PCA step by step, we focus in on Dylan. Here's a young lady. Doesn't need an alibi because it's already clear as day. She is in the crime scene. Right there, middle of it, her bedroom. Literally the first door of the entrance of any perpetrator to that home that's deemed to be the perpetrator. Her door would be the very first one, center, right in the crime scene. You either got to make a right or a left when you come to her door, or you got to continue to go forward. Somehow she's able to open and close her door 3 times, hearing everything going on in the home, but nobody else hears her or sees her. Nobody else makes a move towards her. So I just got this inner gut feeling. Who was it that wanted Kaylee to come back to the house when Kaylee had left? Who was it that summoned and asked Kaylee to come back? Oh, Dylan. Need a +1 for a party. Wow, that's odd. I mean, you just really think about how that fits. Right before Kaylee's life is lost, Dylan brings her back? Okay, just a small coincidence. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, the evidence so far against Bryan Kohberger has been deemed circumstantial. So when we talk about Dylan, let's talk about circumstantial evidence that could literally point at her. She is dead center of the actual crime scene. Not a word stated that she walked in on what possibly happened or she left for a time being. No, she was there the entire time that law enforcement states that this crime was happening. She was also the first one to make a phone call in regards to finding an issue within the home that relates to the crime. But she didn't call law enforcement. No, she called friends. Which you and I and nobody else has heard that 911 call that was placed 8 hours after the fact. So none of us actually even knows what was said. That's unusual when it comes to a crime that the 911 call is not released. That's how bottled up this case has been, and somebody's being protected. People, for some reason, are not willing to acknowledge the connections that Dylan has in life. People don't realize those connections have their hands in the cookie jar game of the narcotics and the money making and even violence against women. That's right, I'm talking about Jeremy Quinn. Jeremy Kelly, Quinn Kelly's father. Jeremy Kelly has been very violent numerous times with women, having served numerous prison sentences for it. No issue being violent with women. He's also into the narcotic game, and he has friends that take lives. One of his good friends, not long after the Idaho 4 case, was actually arrested and taken into custody for murdering other individuals involved in the narcotic game. And many behind the scenes have stated that was due to Jeremy Kelly making kind of an ask for a favor type situation. Dylan Mortensen has been seen in pictures with the very type of weapons that have been deemed to have been used in the crime. Is that circumstantial? I mean, did they locate the K-bar knives that were in all the pictures of others around the crime scene? And were those investigated? Were they tested? I've blatantly seen pictures of Dylan in a stabbing motion with a K-bar knife. People want to say it's fake, but it's not. There are pictures out there of her partying with others that have K-bar knives. I mean, circumstantial evidence. Not only does she claim to have heard things during the crime taking place, 8 hours after what law enforcement states the intruder left the home, she decided to call friends to the home. There's no circumstantial thoughts within that of cleaning, potentially removing things from the home, evidence or non-evidence. There's just something that sits within that young lady that's not right. And her friends are in direct view of what many feel are involved in this case as well, meaning Emma Bailey, Demetrius Robinson. And let me tell you, both of them do not have clean records themselves. Demetrius also being known to be an extremely violent individual, especially against women. And they're both heavily involved in the narcotic game. So I do understand that there are deep dives that people want to look at certain individuals and try to piece them into not only snitching, but also into the drug game. When there are people directly in the home and around the home that are not on an affiliated base, but they're both violent and into the drug game. So I do have this thought that runs through me. What if this wasn't retaliation for a so-called informant or a snitch outside of the home? What if the actual informant or snitch lived within the home? Doesn't that make a little more sense with the violence of this crime and the mass amount of people that lost their lives? Wouldn't it be more so it was within the home? Because you see, yes, I come from a background that is knowledgeable about taking out those people's families that we cannot touch. Meaning if we know of someone who's involved with us that wrongs us, and we can't get our hands on that person, of course, we will touch somebody very close to them. But we never touched numerous people to get back at an individual. It's not how it happens. It's not what it's about. I get it. Affiliations are violent, but we're not going after people that we don't have an issue with. We go after those that we do to prove a point. But now it's a little bit different if they're the individual we're seeking. Let's say Kaylee, who was into true crime and maybe possibly knew some information about a young man who was hazed by a fraternity, lost his life, and was going to go to authorities and give up information that could get other people pinched. Well, that snitch is going to get handled. And it's going to be in a gruesome, violent manner, because it would be the individual person that was getting their hands laid on. It makes more sense to someone like myself that the issue that caused this very crime was within that home. I'm not saying that, of course, the house was targeted. It was an individual that lived within that home that was targeted. Could be 2. Could be 3. How many of them actually knew knowledge of something that could get them taken out? If it's a drug operation ran by a single individual, yet 4 people know of it and are willing to turn in on it, they lose their lives. And those that weren't snitching or at risk of snitching don't lose their lives, but they play a part within the crime. I've never once ever felt as though Dylan was not involved in this crime. I think it is an absolute tragedy that she has not been further investigation into this crime, especially those that are directly surrounding her, that she could have either helped get away with it or actually helped commit the crime. I'm here to help you, I believe, goes a lot deeper than what people are making it to be. Could that have actually been a statement directed directly to Dylan? Her door was open, and I'm here to help you. Ladies and gentlemen, I know it's an odd feeling, but every time I look at Dylan, I see someone that's as crazy and deep down violent as a Jodi Arias. I don't know why I get that feeling, but within me, Dylan Mortensen gives me Jodi Arias vibes. And that's just my little troublesome video for tonight. And I'm sure I'm going to do another here very soon, because I do have a lot of thoughts on my mind, and I need to start getting off and clearing these things out of my mind and my chest, because they're driving me a little nuts. I hope you had a great holiday. I hope the holiday season coming up is great for everybody. I'm seeing a specialist here in the next couple of days that I hope we can move forward and get some of this stuff that I'm dealing with surgically repaired. Other therapies are going well, but I need to move forward with others. But I hope to keep steady pace with all of you, because I'm very appreciative of each and every single one of you that comes and supports my channel, my wife, and I. Much love to all of you. Thank you, and I give you all of my respect. Have a great night.